Hello and welcome to season 2 of Sex Is Medicine Reboot, your number one sex education podcast. If you are a sexual rebel and spiritual warrior, let's hear it. I am your host, Miss Davy Ward Erickson, and this season, Elena and I will continue bringing you over 27 years of combined expertise in the field of holistic sexual wellness. We have some very awesome guests this season, so make sure you like and subscribe on all your favorite listening platforms and sign up for updates at holisticsexologyinstitute.com so you don't miss a single juicy drop of this wisdom nectar. Hello and welcome back to Sex Is Medicine Reboot, Season 2 of Sex Is Medicine Reboot, your sex education podcast for sexual rebels and spiritual warriors. I am your host, Davy Ward Erickson. My lovely co-host, Elena, is currently pouring her heart and her soul and her time and her attention into our holistic sexology certification training program, which is the only government accredited holistic sexology program on the market, by the way. She will be back to co-host with me and answer your very awesome questions about sexuality, healing, spirituality, very, very soon. So please make sure you send us your questions because we love your questions and we particularly love answering your questions. We are so delighted to be here with you again in 2026, the year of the fire horse. My goodness, last year, the snake year, 2025. I don't know about y'all, but I was shedding something fierce, and I'm so grateful for everything that was shed and everything that was let go of, and excited and delighted about what this year is offering us, the expansion and the growth that we are moving into with this year of the fire horse. We have some, and the fire host. We have some truly phenomenal guests to share with you this season. I am feeling very honored and I'll say empowered and accomplished that I get to speak with some of these wonderful guests and share their wisdom with all of you. This is definitely a win-win-win-win-win all the way around. Today, I am delighted to share a somatic sexologist who has been on my Instagram radar for quite a little while. And I was very pleased when she reached out to suggest an interview with me for Sex Is Medicine. And I am delighted to introduce to you the adopted sexologist, Anna Linde. Am I saying that right? Anna Linde?
Yes. Yes, you do.
Yay. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And I'm going to read to you a little bit about Anna so that you have a fulsome picture of who this incredible human being is. Anna is a Swedish-Brazilian sexologist and dance and movement therapist whose work centers on sexual liberation, pleasure, and the sacred, because in my opinion, there is nothing that is unsacred as a human being. As a certified sex coach, she brings playfulness and spiritual depth into conversations around intimacy, embodiment, and desire. And her published research explores the sexual health of international adoptees from their own perspectives. One of the first articles on the topic in the world. That's quite an accomplishment. In 2026, she is diving deeper into how the mother wound and our internalized voices shape our sensuality, pleasure, and capacity for self-love, and how this relates to wealth, success, and money. She also has a strong interest for somatic sexology and how our embodied wisdom can lead us in the right direction. You are singing my song, lady, embodied wisdom, leading us in the right direction. Thank you so much for being here, Anna.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be in this type of interactions when you know that you appreciate the same things or that you understand things from the same perspective or dimensions.
From a similar lens, yes, and that's so important these days. That's one of the I know I'm a big astrology fan, so I follow astrology. It's a hobby of mine, not a profession at all, nor will it ever be. But something that's happening with all of these like very intense and transformational cosmic events is Saturn and Neptune are moving into my 11th house, which is the house of community and the fruition of your career and expansion into community and groups. And so to speak to what you just shared, yes, more and more and more, I think for many of us, the importance of sharing conversations and being in community, online community with people of like mind and who share a similar lens is becoming increasingly important. So thank you for being here with me.
Well, thank you. It's an honor in so many ways.
Yay. All right. So today we're going to talk about the mother wound. And I would imagine as an adoptee, the mother wound is one of the core wounds for you. And I think I'm going to preface this by saying that I truly believe that the mother wound is a core wound for all of humanity. And so that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I wanted to put some focus on this and like tease this out a bit more for all of us in this world that we're currently in, and seeing all this pain and this trauma and this violence and the disrespect for life, right? Which
Yes.
I believe ties directly to our mother wound, because mother supports and nurtures and enriches life. And when that need for nurturing is not met for us as human beings, we develop a propensity for violence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's one of the very important aspects of it. And if we look from another perspective, it's also about Mother Earth, because she is our mother as well. So when we lose the connection and the respect for our mothers in human form, or our caregivers in human form, many of us have also lost the connection to Mother Earth and the sacredness, like you said, that all humans or all life is sacred. So these two things or perspectives come together a lot for my clients, and I bet for a lot of other people around the globe. It's just that we don't have the language, or maybe the embodied understanding of what it means to bring the sacredness back. But also, how can we tend to this wound? Like, what do we do when nothing around us actually match what we need?
Yes. Yeah, that's huge. So you just said, like, how do we tend to this wound within us when we don't have external support, right? So everything that's reflected to us in the outside world just reflects the wound back to us. So where do we go for that healing? Where do we go for that support? So where do we go for that, Anna?
Yes. Where do we go? And you answered the question, solve it. Because you said something that relates to me being an adoptee, that this is a center, or this is one of the core wounds. And for me personally, being adopted and both being back in Brazil and meeting my biological mom, as well as having a relationship with my Swedish mom, have made me really look at this wound from different perspectives along a longer time. And I think what my trap where I fell in was, okay, but I couldn't get what I needed from here, so I will go over here. Like, the answer needs to be here instead, which is, it's not necessarily what we need to do. Because when we continue to look outside of ourselves for somebody else to save me, somebody else to fix it, somebody else to give me what I need, that kind of means that I'm saying that it's something wrong with me and somebody else needs to fix it. That's maybe not the best way to actually heal. That's outsourcing. Like, we're putting it on an outsource instead. And many of us in different times of our lives have accidentally put that responsibility or that longing on a partner, which, as we know, might result in that we're clingy, we become needy, we have, a lot of expectations on our partner or partners that those people can simply not live up to because we also didn't know what we were actually longing for. So to circle back to the question, it's again about being able to hold ourselves and to be present and to sit with the discomfort and take a deeper or more close look at, okay, but what does care mean for me? How can I love myself unconditionally, even if nobody else gave it to me?
Wow. Yeah. What does care mean for me? And that is such a beautiful self-inquiry. And speaking to what you just shared, it's like my understanding from human developmental trauma is that as human beings, we have profound needs for nurturing, right? That's just like that's the way mammals are. Like we must have love and care and attention. And when those needs for nurturing are not sufficiently met, or there's ruptures or interruptions in those needs for nurturing being adequately met, that can create traumas. That can create, again, ruptures in our psyche. And so if those ruptures are not repaired by sufficient nurturing as we grow up, then we carry those wounds into adulthood. And then we are looking, like you said, we are looking for medicine for those wounds. We're looking for someone else outside of ourselves to fill those wounds. But the issue is that those wounds, they're childhood wounds, right? And as a child, it's appropriate to look to your mommy and your daddy and, your caregiver to meet your needs. That's your needs for emotional nurturing. That's very appropriate as a child. But as an adult, it's not appropriate for us to then ask other adults to meet the needs of our child.
No. And it's so many layers in what you just said. And just in, the Tantra scene or the world of Tantra, where we're so, well, from my perspective, it's so important that I know how to express my boundaries. It's so important that I say no to what is no so that I can say yes to what is actually a yes. But if I go in with, my subconsciousness needing something so that I don't feel rejected, then I put the other person in that interaction in a very tricky situation energetically. And if I'm not able to take a rejection or take a no, not right now, or no, I'm not interested, or no, that's not for me, or no, I need more time, then suddenly we lost what's actually meant for us or what is possible for us to create in the present moment. So that's one way where sex can be used as medicine, and where the sacredness of our sexual connection can be a part of how we can heal this. But also, and this what I just said, if I have the expectation that another adult should love me unconditionally, that's not creating a good balance. Because what does that mean? In reality, does it mean that my partner or partners can treat me however, in whatever way, in whatever setting that it is, because I love them unconditionally, and they no, like that's not making any sense. Because if I don't love myself unconditionally, how would I say no when something is actually a no? Like it's not. It's a lot of people make this mistake. I made this mistake 100 times, earlier, and it's flipping the script in a way, because if I want to show up with love and care for somebody else, I really need to know what that means for me first. Otherwise, it's not making sense. I think I said this 3 times already, but I just want to say it again. It's not making sense.
So yes, you're saying it doesn't make sense. And it makes sense from the perspective of, if we understand trauma and the way trauma functions, it makes sense from a trauma-informed perspective, but it doesn't make sense just from a conventional, like, relationship perspective. But the thing is that in our relationships, in this world, in this culture, in this society, all over the planet, y'all, many, I would say like 60, 70, 80 or more percent of us are functioning from unconscious trauma, unconscious wounding. I really don't believe that we can come up in this world, this patriarchal, anti-life, supremacist culture, and escape unscathed, escape untraumatized, right? So trauma is often an underlying, like the elephant in the room, right? The elephant in the room. And in terms of the mother wound, that trauma, as we said, we believe is a global trauma, is a worldwide trauma for many of us humans. And so a lot of what we see enacted out in our adult relationships is our unhealed childhood trauma or unhealed wounding playing out in our relational dynamics. And I loved what you said about that interaction of like, if I as an individual am not clear and centered in my yes and my no, I will give away my power to somebody else. Or for me, something that came up for me for most of my life, I was a big fawner. Like that was my survival response, was fawning, right? And so in order to have those needs for love and acceptance met, I would often abandon myself. I would often, again, give my power away. I would abandon myself for the sake of meeting those needs for love and connection instead of
Yes, I think
honoring.
we all did that.
Yeah, instead of honoring what was true for me. And that's a growth thing, right? That's something that we evolve and grow through. But to me, it really points back to how if we as children, like it's our parents' responsibility to instill self-love into us as human beings. Like that's their job. And so for children who have that love and nurturing poured into them, that sense of self develops in a different way than those of us who have had ruptures.
And I mean, just to add a personal reflection on what you said. So for me, patriarchy and colonialism and all of this bullshit that we're all trying to live through in a more sustained way. For me, my adoption is an effect or a consequence of that. Because otherwise, how did we end up in a situation where mothers and families couldn't keep their kids and their children in whatever part of the world that we're in? We wouldn't. So to realize that layer also of it makes it even more important to both decentralize whiteness, but also to look at what structures, what are these structures that keep me from feeling, the highest form of self-love, or that I have a self-worth only by who I am. And I don't need to produce. I don't need to do things all the time. I don't need to perform. I don't need to, all of these patriarchic values that are so ingrained in our societies that we barely don't see them anymore. And to make to cut back to sex, how good are we in receiving? Because we're actually worth in just receiving in whatever sexual connection or situation that we're in with ourselves or with somebody else. And that's maybe, a piece of a puzzle where people listening can think about it. It's like, are you comfortable in receiving? Or are you always the one that's supposed to give or supposed to do or are you actually, is it comfortable for you? And you lean back and just allow yourself to attune to you and listen and go with that.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful, tangible touchstone or signpost of where we are in our relationship to self-love is our willingness and ability to receive. How willing are we to actually receive nurturing, and in what forms are we willing to receive nurturing? Like I know, like my husband was very willing to receive nurturing through food because that was very, accepted in his family, but maybe not so willing to receive nurturing through other means and other, expressions as well. So the ways in which, for you listeners, noticing in your life where you are willing to fully receive, where you are able to fully receive, and where you may have resistance to receiving. And that can be a beautiful little signpost for you to look more deeply into those areas of resistance. Yeah. And you said something else that I think is so huge in terms of like, an overview, a cosmic overview, so to speak, is what does it say about the planet that we're in, or the society that we're living in on this planet as a global society in which mothers and parents are not able to keep their children? What structures are causing this need to occur, and what an abandonment of responsibility in terms of, like, again, human and global society, that we've created cultures and societies and structures that put women and men in positions where they even have to consider giving their child away to meet their own needs for well-being, because that's usually the way it is. Usually it's like a young woman gets pregnant when she doesn't want to, because of inadequate sex education, inadequate birth control, perhaps sexual assault was involved, so there's all these layers that may cause a woman to be in the position where she's pregnant when she hasn't chosen that for herself, and then is in the position of having to give her child away in order for the child to have a better life. Right? That is like, wow, that speaks again to the mother wound as a global society, and how that as an overview then trickles down to just these individual interactions that we have in the bedroom, right? And our ability to connect with ourselves and our own bodies. Yes.
Yes. And it does. And you framed it, or you re-explained it so good with these words that you were using, because And we're talking, everything that we're talking about now is basically shadow work. Like, we're talking about what's in our bodies in a subconscious level that we're now lifting or highlighting, and we're making it visible. And, because that's exactly my story and a million other stories, that my mother was young and she didn't have the possibility to keep me, and obviously a lot of million other details as well. But that idea, that narrative, that story, that she gave me up for my best, which is true also. But what does that say about the mother? It says that she should sacrifice. It says that she needs to give up on herself. But if I live as an adult woman with an unhealed mother wound where that's a part, I might think that I need to sacrifice. And I might think that I need to give up on myself, on parts, to make other people, my partners, my children, whoever, my dog, not my cat, because he keeps falling through my neighbor's damn roof. So not him, but everyone else. And that also relates to what we were saying about receiving. Yeah. Because if I have an idea that the mother is somebody who is, giving up, she is sacrificing, as we see in all the movies, there's always a mother who sacrificed everything for the kids. But that's not necessarily making us happy, though. No way. And so many needs to do that because there is no other options and so on. But I'm like, yeah, okay, but maybe we don't need to do it in the bedroom. That's maybe we can
do it a different way. Well, and what you're speaking of is the nuclear family model of patriarchal Western culture, which is it's one woman and one man, and the woman's job is to take care of the home and the children, and the dad's job is to go out to work and drink martinis at lunch, or whatever the old way was. But that hasn't been the way it is for all of human history. But that is a very patriarchal kind of, focus, that the woman's role is to take care of the children and to sacrifice everything for the children. That's a holy woman. That is a good woman. A good woman is not a woman who lays on her back with her legs spread and squirts across the room. That's not a good woman. A good woman is one who sacrifices all her pleasure and joy for the sake of others, right? And that, again, is a patriarchal, supremacist ideology framework that is life alienating and actually creates ruptures in having our needs for nurturing met as individuals and as adults and as children. Because if a mother is not well resourced, she's not going to be able to pour into her children, right? Like an exhausted, overwhelmed mother is not a nurturing mother. And she doesn't have the capacity to nurture to her full ability when she's exhausted and overwhelmed. And so our society keeps us in this cycle. So I'll stop now.
But you're right. But you're 100% right. And I'm just, I also get like, oh yes, I want to talk about this more. And it's to pull in, because the archetype of a mother, everybody knows what a mother is. It's a collective piece. If we look at Jung's psychology or psychoanalytics or whatever word it is, but then unfortunately, we also have the stereotypes.
Yes.
So what does it mean to be a Black single mom compared to a white single mom, or all of these different type of stereotypes, which makes it even trickier for people from the global majority to actually try to be the self-sacrificing, if this is the archetype or the idea that they are trying from their heart to live up to, because this is the only way that is available. And then suddenly society crashes in and come with this judgment and bullshit. And then we're not feeling empowered at all. And many needs to turn to, leaving the caring or the nurturing sides to be warriors instead, to fight for their lives, for their kids' future. And then suddenly we're not nice women anymore. And then the cycle repeats, like you're saying. How would anybody have the capacity for care, nurture in the way that we're meant to, in the bodies that we have, when we're burned out all the time? Because nobody can do that. Like, it's not making sense. And you said, or you asked, no, you said, I don't remember, somebody said that, like, how can we, like, is there a way to use movement? To use this as a part of healing? Like, how can we? Because obviously we don't have all the time in the world. We also don't have the money to go to therapy and all of these things. And there's a lot of bad therapists in the world. I think everybody can sign up for that. But to practice to microdose how you want to feel in your body, on your walk. You can take 5 minutes before you need to go. Put your alarm on 5 minutes earlier and allow yourself to just stay in bed listening to your favorite song. Like, allow yourself to remember who you are, whatever that means to you. Because when we can embody who we are, if it's the erotic self part, or if it's the playful part, or whichever part it is that we want to find again, then we can start in our bodies, even if we don't know what that person looks like today. We have no idea how that person would dress, but we can embody that person. Same in the sexual connection. If I want to practice in receiving and being the receiving part in this meeting or interaction, then how would I sit if I am somebody who's going to receive? How will I open the door? Will I even open the door? Is it somebody else that should open the door for me? Or would I like candles? Like, what kind of colors would I just hold around me? What kind of perspective would I like to this person to look at me or not? And then I can create that space for myself when I practice sexual self-care. I just want to read a book, doesn't matter, but like, I can embody that sense and just microdose it, because why not? Why not?
The body as a resource. That's what I'm hearing you say. The body as a resource, and attuning to the body, viscerally feeling sensation, and really following that thread of pleasure, like what feels good. This is something my husband and I talk about often, because we'll just like hang out in this bed behind me, with our 3 dogs and 2 cats and whatever, and just like feel good. Like, we're just like in the jungle, surrounded by mountains, surrounded by jungle, and just allowing the body to feel good. And what a freaking privilege that is, to be in a body that doesn't have pain and doesn't, have suffering and doesn't have injury, but to be in a body that has the capacity to just feel good. And I think about, like, again, this speaks to that mother wound, how our culture has taught us to fear our body, to fear sensation. We're only allowed certain specific sensations. We're only allowed the sensations that the media and the government and the outside forces tell us that we're allowed to to have, to experience. And when it comes to pleasure, we're allowed some forms of pleasure. I actually talk about this in my book, Shake Your Soul Song. We're allowed some forms of pleasure. Those are socially accepted, but other forms of pleasure, such as sexual pleasure, there's a lockbox on it. You're allowed to feel this much and that's it. And it has to look this way, and it has to be very oriented to the white male gaze. And that is the sex that you're allowed to have. And that's, one of the reasons why we have the podcast Sex Is Medicine, to dismantle that structure, that subconscious structure that's in our psyches, that's been fed to us from the time that we've been children through the media, through these big devices in our homes that are blasting their conditioning to us. So reclaiming sensation as a pathway to reconnection. And reconnection is the foundation of this unconditional love. Again, to circle back to where we started, it was our parents' job, both our parents, not just the mama. The relationship with the mother is profound because we grew from her body. I mean, that's an incredible, we grew in her body. That's an incredible relationship. I mean, it's just astounding, right? It's an incredible relationship. So that is a very important, relationship, but the father is also important as well. And so it is our parents' responsibility to nurture us as children and to instill unconditional self-love into our core identity. And when our parents are stressed and overwhelmed, they aren't able to do that in the way that human beings need. And it's no shade, like parents out there. I'm a fur child parent, but I'm not a human parent. Much respect for parents. Y'all are fucking overwhelmed. You are overwhelmed. This system keeps you, as you know, in the grind. Y'all are overwhelmed, and it is not your fault. It is not your fault that you aren't getting the support you need.
No, and we all are. We're not meant to live like this. We're not meant to parent like this. So all of us, I have two boys that are 15 and a half and 12 and a half. And I've been, they've been living with me full time since 7 years back or something like this. It's like, I know how it feels to be overwhelmed. I tried that. Like, I tried it.
You're a mama.
Yeah. Like, I tried that. And I think here is where the bad conscious comes in, or like the feeling of feeling guilty because I'm not doing everything. I don't have time. It's not possible. It's not possible. And I was explaining this to my oldest one. He knows it already because he helps a lot around the house. But I told him this morning because he said, do you ever finish when you start to clean, or do you always do a corner and then you leave it? And I said, I always never finish it. And that's because if I would finish everything, if I would clean all the time, if I would do all the dishes and all of the other things, and I would always make sure it's done, there would be no time for me.
Exactly.
And no time for me to sit on the porch and listening to the jungle, because I also have a jungle here, or watch the elephants 10 minutes extra when I walk my dog. There is no time. So I never finish things because I make sure to plan my windows of time that is just for me.
Wow.
And for anybody who listens, that could be 5 minutes. You can microdose it, but make sure that you give yourself that love, that prioritization, that those 5 minutes or 15 over a day or whatever it is that works for you in your schedule, that they are for you. End of story. And they are for you. Because this is how we need to recreate this understanding of our bodies, nurture it, yes. Mm-hmm. And also to feel like, is this what I need? Mm-hmm. Is this what I want? And if the inner critic starts to talk, that's not your intuition. Mm-hmm. That's not your intuition. If it's about ruminating about the future or the past, that's not intuition. That's your inner critic. Wow. That's not the same. When you hear I should, or it's always or never, that's maybe not your gut feeling speaking. Maybe that's something else. And we need silence to know what's going on. We have no idea how to make a difference in which parts that are speaking, what we actually hear if we're not holding that space. Yes. So microdose it. is, I think, the
Microdosing.
point with what I wanted to say.
Well, and I love what beautiful role modeling for your children and for all of us. It's like, yeah, the kitchen could be spotless, but at what cost?
Yeah.
And your unwillingness to sacrifice your commitment to your own self connection. That is huge. That is huge. And I love that you're making it accessible, but like it doesn't have to be a week away at a spa. It can be 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, another
Yes.
5 minutes. You can microdose. I love that concept. Microdose self connection to help maintain your anchor and your connection to yourself. And the other point that I love that you brought up is that your inner critic is not your intuition. Bam, right there. Inner critic. It's like that is such a pure distinction. That is such a clear distinction for all of us. So
Well,
remember that.
We kind of mix it up. We think
Yes.
that's my intuition speaking, and it's like, no, bitch, that's fear.
Yeah.
Like that was actually not this, but we don't know until we have quiet time or silence or just space to sit and feel what is actually going on.
Yep.
Because what we're thinking about something is just a translation from how we're already feeling.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's the truth. That doesn't mean that it's the instructions or a manual to what I should do. It's the same with sexual fantasies.
Yeah.
We can have all types of sexual fantasies. That doesn't mean that they are instructions manuals for how we should act. It means that it's information and we can take a closer look. We can think about it. We can, figure out if this is something I actually do want to, should, if it's safe for me to try this or whatever. But it's not like, oh, this is an instruction manual. No.
Mm-hmm. Well, unlike the way many people use porn as an instruction manual, a teaching video, as opposed to fantasy, right? And so, yeah. So I love that you keep bringing it back to being quiet and self-connected. And so this is how, tying it back to something I was saying before, this is how we restore that self-love, that unconditional love that we didn't have instilled into us as children. This is how we as adults can do this. And I'm just, again, it seems like ringing that bell. You keep ringing that bell for me in terms of how this is a somatic experience. This is an embodied experience. And when we can come home to our bodies as a friend, relate to our bodies in a way that's friendly again, like we did maybe when we were children, that it becomes a safe space to be in, a safe space to connect to. And this is how we restore that self-love. That's how we heal the mother wound.
Yes. And it's like you can find the signs. If you're like, okay, I heard what she said, or like, I heard this conversation, I'm going to take 5 minutes and I'm going to sit on my porch or in my couch, not doing anything. And when you sit down and you immediately feel how tense you are and your jaws are clenched and it starts to itch and you hear this inner critic, then that means that you're uncomfortable. It doesn't mean that it's the wrong decision. Because if you never got this care, or if you're changing, very, very hard patterns or tricky patterns in you, that you need to be productive, you need to do things, you need to be a good wife or partner or whatever, then it's going to itch in your soul when you're changing these patterns. End of story. Like that's, and we tend to, the idea of what is normal for me doesn't mean that it's the best thing. It just means that I recognize it. My body recognizes whatever chaos in a relationship or getting compliments because I'm doing good things.
Yes.
So if I want to practice in receiving, that's going to feel uncomfortable. Like it's because it's not familiar to me.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that I'm having feelings and I hear my inner critic and I can remind myself that these words, these things that's going on is a translation from my body on something I'm feeling. And if I can sit with that, I can figure out what should I do with this feeling. Because I'm an adult now. I have agency, So what should I do?
And this to me is where movement ties in so beautifully, because I know for me, when I was first starting and sitting in meditation, that sitting that you described, I had so much trauma in my body that just following my breath was like torture. I wanted to scream. So for me, initially doing hatha yoga and moving connecting my breath to each of the stretches and to each of the movements was a way of moving the energy of that discomfort out of my body. And then later, when I started practicing sacred erotic dance, and movement therapy, working with myself and so many clients in moving that uncomfortable energy, that residual trauma response out of that body through intentional conscious movement. And that was a way for me of reclaiming my body as a safe space to be. So could you talk a little bit more about the movement therapy that you do?
It's basically similar to what you just said, because this is exactly the point. And the problem, well, how I see it or how my clients experience it, is that they hear the inner critic. Everybody hears it very loud. They see how it's connecting with something they're already feeling. And it's uncomfortable, it's not cool, it doesn't feel good at all. The question is, how do we transform? How do we allow it to move through our body? And how do we release those tensions and allow yourself to open up your chest and actually breathe instead? Or how can you ground yourself where you're sitting in a couch? Or how do you shake and roll off your shoulders in the actual pace that is good for you? Or how can you brush your teeth and stretch your jaws? And how can you do that in a more, sacred and nice and caring way compared to, as you said, I was going, it's so much about attuning to ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes, the connection to ourselves and attuning so that we don't override our needs for actually being in the moment, because it's in the present moment where the healing is the doors for healings are created and opened. So we cannot override it and we're jumping these stages and we think that it's going to be fine. No, then we're avoiding it. And that's so scary for all of us. That has been so scary. So with this microdosing, when somebody can sit 5 minutes, write down what your inner critic is telling you. And look at it later, or take notes. Like, where are these tensions? Like, am I nauseous? Or how am I actually organizing myself? Write it down. And then leave it a little bit. And then, call us or whatever, but look to it again. And it's like, what is this? What happened? When did I sit like this the last time? Do I even remember? And how was that experience? Because all of our memories and experiences, and especially the traumatic ones, are still stored in our bodies. So if it's extremely painful and uncomfortable for you to sit 5 minutes, well, you just uncovered something that is important then. That's good. It's not cozy, but good. That's what we need to do.
Necessary.
Because there's no way out. Necessary. That's good.
Growth. And so what's coming to mind as you're speaking is there's a saying in Tibetan Tantric Buddhism, which is the body is Buddha, right? And that's a lovely concept. And it would be great if people acted like that, but they don't. But truly what you're saying, like reframing it or viewing it through the lens of the body is Buddha, that it's so profound, because the body tells us a story. The body carries memory from generations. We're not even talking about spiritual karma. We're talking about ancestral wisdom that is inherited, passed down through the lineage from inception, from the time your first relatives, 100,000 years ago or whenever it was, 60,000, appeared on this planet. You carry the genetic code of that intelligence. That is phenomenal. And that lives in the body. And all of that can be accessed as a resource simply by doing what you're describing, sitting and attuning. But it doesn't happen all at once, right? It happens layer by layer by layer. because there is some sediment we got to get through. There's some shit, there's some obstacles in the path, so to speak. And so those microdoses I found from my own journey for myself and working with students, that's small bites. I think in trauma and somatic healing, they call it titrating, small bites. We don't need to overwhelm ourselves like Scorpio Davy, and balls to the wall. And, if a little is good, then 100 more is better, 100 times is better. We don't need to do that. Titrating has been the wisdom I've gained from my journey, slowly, gently. Yes. Yeah.
Because that's also care.
Yes, thank you.
That's also nurturing.
Yes.
And also there is no learning if I override my own capacity. It doesn't matter what it is. There is no learning. It's not like my body or my nervous system picks up and like, whoa, that's great. I don't have any clue what happened because I zoned out, but we did something here. Like it doesn't work, because if I have this trauma here, let's say if I'm scared of dogs, for example, and I'm so scared of dogs that every time I see a dog, I'm avoiding it. I'm going to change the side of the street. I'm going to walk around it and so on. And after I did that 100 times, my brain will have saved the correlation of we survived with avoid that dog or avoid every dog. So when I need to challenge this pattern and how my brain thinks this correlates, I need to microdose it. I need to, because I need to put maybe 100 new small experiences.
Yep.
And if I'm not present in my body, if I don't know my triggers, if I don't know how my shoulders feel when I'm relaxed, or how my jaws feel when they are unclenched, then how will I know when I get triggered? Yeah. Like for real, the next time. It's the same when we talk about consent. Like you need to be able to say no so that you can say yes. Yeah, but how do you know when it's a no if you don't know how a no feels?
Exactly. And then sex without consent. And I'm not talking about sexual assault or rape. I'm talking about those times when we, as beings, may have engaged in sex. I'll speak for myself. The times when I've engaged, I know other people have done this too, engaged in sex when it wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a clear, it maybe wasn't clear because I didn't have enough self-attunement to even know.
Yes.
And it could have been a hell fuck yeah, but I was so frozen, I didn't know. And it could have been a hell fuck no, but I was so disassociated, I didn't know. Right? So those really like self-attunement, again, is the key to eradicating self-abandonment. Self-attunement eradicates self-abandonment. And that has been the greatest crime that I have ever committed, has been my own self-abandonment, though I forgive myself and understand myself. Yes. But
and you're pinpointing that, you're kind of summarizing all of this conversation, because as long as I don't give myself unconditional love, I am the one abandoning myself, not on purpose. I just didn't know better.
Yeah.
But I can make the decision to stop and to not do that anymore. Also in micro doses here and there. And for some people that might look like I need more time before I can say yes or no.
Yeah.
For other people, that could be those 5 minutes here and there. It could be anything. But and this relates to the heartbreaks we feel. And I usually say, and I read it also like 100 times as well, that it's when our first heartbreak is from our parents.
Yeah.
Every other heartbreak becomes even harder. Yeah. And I can feel myself in that, because I was transferring my need for being loved and being chosen to all of my previous partners. And then when they broke up with me, we broke up, I crashed because I was like, nobody wants me now. Yeah. I'm nobody. Like what should I do? While when you build up this capacity and relationship with yourself, and if you love yourself unconditionally, then shit happens, but it's not going to kill me.
Yes.
And that's like so damn important. I would love if everybody could just like write. I would write that down and I would put it on my fucking wall so I remember it. But what you said about self-attunement, if we are raised with caregivers, with mothers that hasn't have the capacity to attune to us, we also might not know how it feels to be attuned to.
Yes.
And then this becomes even more important to actually like, oh, wait, well, okay. Like, no, this is my pace or direction or whatever. How can you create flow?
Yeah.
Is a good question. Where is it flow?
That's so profound and so beautiful. And I'm gonna close us there. What I would love is, will you share with our audience where folks can get a hold of you, where they can find you, and how they can work with you?
Yes. So I think the easiest to find me is maybe on Instagram, like you said, the Adoptedsexologist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finishing up, I'm wrapping up an ebook about the mother wound and money blocks, which is, the intersection of self-worth and the fear of rejection and all of these things. So on my Instagram, there will be a link to where you can buy that book.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah. And I do coaching, I do counseling, I do a lot of different things. So I say that, ask me a question and let's see who I can direct you to or what we can do. But everything that we talked about today is basically what I work with individuals and couples, where the mother, the idea of care
Mm-hmm.
and boundaries and expectations in couple relationships might also be a bit unbalanced.
Yeah. So helping people with self-attunement and attuning with each other. Yeah.
Yeah. And sexual liberation.
Woohoo!
Like other amazing people here,
Right on. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Anna. It has been an absolute pleasure and joy. And I hope to talk with you much, much more. And wonderful audience, we will have all of the resources, all of the links to all of her things so that you can follow this incredible woman and stay attuned to her work. So make sure you like and subscribe and on all your favorite listening platforms, or we'll sales spiel here, and check us out at holisticsexology.com. Make sure you sign up for your episodes of Sex Is Medicine and our free Tibetan 5-element Tantra video course on our website, holisticsexology.com. Thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate you and value you.
Same.
And we will see you next week. Woohoo!
You've been listening to Sex Is Medicine, your #1 resource for holistic sex education.
Make sure you like and subscribe to Sex Is Medicine on all your listening platforms, and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, where you can get your daily dose of Sex Is Medicine videos and episode recaps. Also, make sure you register for your weekly dose of Sex Is Medicine at holisticsexologyinstitute.com and send us your questions, please, at questions@holisticsexologyinstitute.com. Thank you so much for listening to Sex Is Medicine.